I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because it already happened. And once you understand what was discovered in Hoia-Baciu Forest, you may never walk through a quiet forest the same way again. Watch this until the end, because the final detail explains why people didn't just get lost, they were recorded. Hoia-Baciu Forest sits just outside Cluj-Napoca, Romania. To locals, it's not a mystery attraction, it's a place you avoid. Not because something jumps out at you, but because nothing does. The forest doesn't behave like other forests, it reacts. And that distinction matters more than most people realize. Since the late 1960s, people have entered Hoia-Baciu and reported identical sensations without knowing each other. Pressure behind the eyes, the feeling of being evaluated, time distortion, and the same sentence appears again and again in witness reports. It felt like something was waiting for me to notice it. Most people stop here and call it folklore, but here's where it gets interesting. When researchers began cataloging these reports, they noticed something disturbing. The forest wasn't random. Experiences clustered in specific zones, repeating with precision. At the center of those clusters is what locals call the clearing, a perfect circle where nothing grows. No shrubs, no fungus, no grass. Soil samples show normal nutrients, no toxins, no radiation strong enough to kill plant life, and yet, decades later, it remains sterile. This matters because ecosystems don't fail neatly. Nature collapses chaotically, but Hoia-Baciu behaves like a controlled environment, and controlled environments imply observation. In 1968, a shepherd entered the forest with 200 sheep. He vanished. 5 years later, he reappeared at the forest edge, alive, disoriented, aged far beyond 5 years. When doctors asked where he'd been, he couldn't answer, except for one phrase he repeated under stress: "They were counting us." The sheep were never found. Not bones, not traces, nothing. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If something could remove 200 living animals without environmental impact, what else could it isolate? At this point, skeptics usually argue hallucinations, stress, myth reinforcement, but those explanations fail when instruments begin to react. Compasses spin violently, batteries drain, cameras malfunction only when pointed towards specific areas. This next part sounds obvious, but almost nobody actually does it. Researchers compared Hoia-Baciu to known electromagnetic anomaly zones, and the readings didn't match interference patterns. They matched containment fields. Containment fields are designed to observe systems without disturbing them. They are used in particle physics, in behavioral research, in controlled military simulations. And once you understand that, the forest stops being chaotic, it becomes structured. Visitors frequently report being watched from behind trees. Photographs later reveal shapes that weren't visible at the time, faces in bark, eyes in shadows. This isn't pareidolia alone, because the shapes shift between frames. But here's the detail most people miss. The watchers are never aggressive. They don't chase, they don't attack, they wait, as if interaction isn't the goal. In psychology, observation without interference is called passive surveillance, and passive surveillance is only useful when you're collecting data over time. In 2022, a hiker's body camera was recovered near the clearing. The footage ends abruptly, but the timestamp doesn't. It keeps running, 3 years beyond the moment he was declared dead. The final frame shows something chilling. Not creatures, not movement. Hundreds of pale, circular shapes positioned at equal distances around him, watching, waiting, silent. No breathing sounds, no footsteps, just presence. And that silence is important because predators don't remain silent when they hunt. Observers do. So what is Hoia-Baciu? A natural anomaly? Possibly. A psychological feedback loop? Maybe. But the consistency, structure, and restraint suggests something else entirely. If this forest is a system, then humans aren't trespassers, they're variables. And variables are measured, compared, sometimes removed from the sample entirely. This reframes every disappearance, not as loss, but as selection, not punishment, but documentation. The forest doesn't chase because it doesn't need to. Time does the work for it. Disorientation, fatigue, isolation. Eventually, people stop moving, and when movement stops, observation becomes complete. Some doors should stay closed, not because what's behind them is violent, but because it's patient. In the next video, I'll show you why similar sentinel zones appear near abandoned research facilities across the world without triggering panic or conspiracy thinking. If you want to understand what's watching quietly instead of loudly, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, if something was observing you, would you even know?